warm welcome to Business Daily right here on Trust Television. I am Yusuf Akogu. Let's take the business top stories. Glad to have you back. Now we go to the stock market and give you highlights of the stock trading as it went down on Thursday on the floor of the Nigerian stock market. The market closed in the positive territory there, 0.05% it went down. The volume of trade 309.315 million, value at 4.45 billion naira in a days of close to 5,558 exchange hands among investors on Thursday. We look at the top gainers quickly. We have the likes of Thomas Watt Nigerian PLC, one of the company that has been in existence in Nigeria since 1948. Gaining about 9.79% there to close at 2 naira 58 kobo. Of course, Courtville also there 8.77% to close there at 62 kobo per share. And of course, the Deep Cap also closing positive there, 8% it gained to close at 27 kobo per share. Let's look at the top traded, the top losers. Cornerstone Insurance, 6.06% downward to close at 1 naira and 55 kobo. Mansard Insurance is also there on the negative side to close there at 3 naira, 3.61% to close at 4 naira per share. And of course, Regalins also closing downward 2.86% as well to close at 34 kobo per shares. Let's look at the top traded equities in terms of volume. All of them from the banking sector. The Fidelity Bank is there leading the charts there with 61.8 million volume of shares. Talking about Access Bank Holdings, the mother company of Access Bank PLC, also traded 54.5 million volume of shares. And of course, UBA United Bank for Africa, 28.8 million volume of shares it traded. Let's look at the sectorial performance. The banking sector up there 0.94%. The industrial sector closing flat there. The consumer goods also marginally up 0.07%. And of course, the oil and gas sector also ended the Thursday business on the flat note. Of course, the insurance sector with almost the Mansard and of course Courtville all on the losing side there. You're having a biggest loser of the day, 1.80%. From the insurance segment of the market. Let's look at the rest of Africa and indeed see how it's going down there. In Joburg is down 0.39%. If you go to Ghana, it's flat, closed flat yesterday, maintaining the same position as it were on Wednesday. And of course, in Nairobi, the market also closing upward there, 0.74%. So the highlight of the stock trading as it went down on Thursday across the continent. But yesterday evening, there was a very, very important decision from the Central Bank of Nigeria lifting ban on the 43 items that was initially suspended from assessing forests in June 2015. That decision was taken yesterday by the Apex Bank, and it said that they intend that this will sustain the stability of the foreign exchange market and, of course, derive the optimum benefit from goods and services imported into the country. So these decisions being taken, a lot of reactions actually trailing that. Of course, if you're looking at your screen there, you see some of those items there. There's rice, there's cement, there's margarine, palm kernel, palm oil products, vegetable oils, meat and processed meat products, vegetable and processed vegetable products, poultry, and all of them. All of these items are actually banned from accessing forests in June 2015. The intention there was to allow for local manufacture and production to expand. But again, these new decisions coming in from the CBN, they've been back and forth. I mean, critics have actually come out to say, look, this is not the right decision to take. Some are saying, well, let them see and sit and watch what will happen in the coming days. So we hope that this is a very good decision that will benefit the economy, and see how this will also, some have said that this is going to impact the pressure that we have already on the forex market. So this is very great. In the coming days, we'll get more reaction with regards to all of these things. Well, all right. So we quickly, before we move away from that, we'll look at the Okonjo-Iweala has been speaking at the ongoing IMF conference in Marrakesh, down there in Morocco. She said she hoped that the Israel-Hamas conflict will end very quickly. She warned that if it doesn't, it will have a great impact on the already weak global trade. Take a listen to her. Glad to have you back. It's the Business Daily right here on Trust Television. Now we're going into our discussion, and today we're looking at the climate climate change in Nigeria, and of course, the impact and responses from various agencies responsible. And I have joining me in the studio David Michael Terungwa is the founder and executive director Gifsep. Gifsep is Global Initiative for Food Security and Ecosystem Preservation. Glad to have you on Business Daily.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's look at climate change in Nigeria. Quite a whole lot have been said regarding to this. How prepared are we to, to have an adequate responses to some of the changes that you may have to tell us?
So let's take a link to the CBN lifting forest ban on some items, including food
all right,
items.
Let's get your response to that.
Yes.
Okay.
First, we're looking at rice, we're looking at poultry,
right.
And all the other food items.
All right.
The fact is, climate change is impacting on food production in the country. And so, our people locally cannot meet our domestic consumption. Why? Simply because of the impact of climate change. Flooding. This year, if you notice, in the past 1 week, it was as if the Harmattan came, and all of a sudden, the rains have continued. This time is the time that farmers should be harvesting. What is the implication of that? It means that lots of those foods will get rotten in the soil because of the high humidity and the water content. So on one side, I'm feeling sad that we are opening the door to the import of rice and other food items into the country, which we cannot control the quality of what comes in, that already. But then our farmers cannot meet the domestic demand. But the major issue even is the food waste. The food waste is nearly 40%.
All right.
And all of this is as a result of climate change impact. Let's look at the logistics, for example. When it floods, the roads are cut off. Our vehicles, our trailers that, haul this food from one part of the country to the other, spend days on the road.
Yes, absolutely.
Onions, tomatoes, cabbage, and the rest, they all get rotten even before they get to the market.
Absolutely.
So if we're able to curb all of this, we don't need to open our borders. We can feed ourselves. I can say that again.
Why is it difficult for us to curb all of this?
Well, I would say it's a lack of political will. I will give it to the lack of political will and the sincerity of purpose, and looking at this as a business and not just as a developmental issue alone. I mean, most of our farmers are subsistence in nature. We keep talking about commercialization of agriculture. I mean, right from primary school was when I kept hearing that, and up till now we are still talking about it. So we know that it is the local farmers that feed the nation. Let's not deceive ourselves. But the fact is that there is that need to transition from that small-scale farming into commercial farming so that we can feed ourselves and also feed our neighbors. We actually feed our neighbors, in quotes. I mean, when the Niger coup happened, when the border was shut, you look at the number of trailers, that were stuck at the border.
Absolutely.
All of that was going out of the country. So we actually also feed our neighbors. But we should feed ourselves first before our neighbors, and then for export.
Now, do you think you made mention of that Niger crisis? I could remember I had the president of the Onions Farmers here, Onions Farmers Association of Nigeria. He was here on my show, and he said that many of their products actually got rottened because of that issues with between Nigeria and Niger. Now we are having all of this. There's potential there, right? Just like you did say. Where are we really getting it wrong in translating this potential into reality? There have been so many speculations that even states in the north or in the central Nigeria can actually feed the entire nation. Why are we not taking these advantages?
So first, we need that enabling environment to support local farmers, and this is lacking completely. So you have a Musa, for example, who goes to borrow from maybe a microfinance bank and then plants his rice without insurance, without any form of support from anywhere. And then, because of climate variability, the rain ceases and all his farm gets scorched, dries up. So what happens? Musa is left to pay back the loan if he can. He is left to take care of his family. Without income, he cannot. And this is the problem of many small-scale farmers in the country. They are on their own. Most of the banks will not support them. The insurance companies will not even look the way of agriculture.
Absolutely.
You know, so this is where the real issue is. So if government really needs to support farmers, we know who the farmers really are. A lot of this Anchor Borrowers program and the rest that happened, we know that many of the beneficiaries were not farmers. That is for a fact. So when some of these, when some of these interventions come, we should look beyond party members. We should just look beyond, you know, in quotes, those who we think are the right beneficiaries when they are not. They are in Abuja, they own no farm, they don't even have a home.
Absolutely.
But they are the beneficiaries.
Absolutely.
So I think that is one of the ways to go. But again, the state governors, I think, have a major role to play here. Let's not just look at the federal. Where are the farms? They are in the states. Where are the farmers? In the states. Where is the land? The state as well. So a state like Kebbi, for example, that has taken advantage of, okay, Kebbi produces rice, but my visit to Kebbi even proved that Kebbi produces more onions than even rice.
Absolutely. Kebbi, Sokoto, Zamfara
so
state.
it's to take advantage of what that state can produce. You go to Benue, we're not even looking at yam now in the context. Everybody looks at Benue and thinks it's yam, but you look at fruits. Oranges, mangoes,
yes,
you know,
absolutely.
and the other varieties. And then ensure that there is proper preservation for this. Because when these farmers harvest, post-harvest losses, you know, everything goes to waste because they cannot preserve it. They cannot process it.
No storage, proper storage system.
And you know what the problem is. So it is that political will to look at this farming, agriculture as a business. The food inflation we are, you know, currently facing in the country at the moment should not even, you know, arise in the first place, because we have all it takes to feed ourselves and our neighbors and even export.
Absolutely, indeed. There's no denying the fact that some parts of Nigeria, as we speak, are currently experiencing flood. States like Adamawa and a whole lot of them. I saw a video a couple of days ago where farmers were complaining that the flood has taken over their farmlands. Some of them, rice farms and all of that, were already overrun with flood. And in some cases, some had to harvest prematurely, you know, to avoid losing everything. So at this point now, what do you think government should do for such farmers? Because most of them, like you rightly mentioned earlier, are also creditors to some microfinance bank or even some industries operating around ASICs.
Yes, so the where we have failed is that every year NIMET and NEMA will come out and issue warnings and floods alert at press conferences in Abuja, and in most cases it ends there. There is no downscaling of this information to the farmers. I mean, this should come even before the farming season.
Absolutely.
So that farmers will know that you are not expected to go and plant on a flood plain. If you do, when the floods come,
you
lose everything. And unfortunately, they don't have any forms of support. I mean, the 2020 flood, is a year plus when it happened, right? It is now that I hear some farmers are getting some support. That is already too late. Very, very late. So, but what we really need to do is to educate our farmers, like serious education on climate change impact. What I usually suggest is that every community, every local government in this country should have a climate risk register. What do I mean? What are those potential climate impacts that can happen in that
some particular
community,
areas?
in some particular areas, depending on their elevation, their geographical location. Some places are more prone to flooding, you know, some to, you know, I won't call it drought.
Desertification.
Now, I won't call it drought in case, dry spells. And then, of course, those close to the Sahel, you know, drought. So when you have all of this information, what do you now do to adapt? That's where we talk of climate adaptation and resilience building for the local farmers. You know, so if we don't have this, we'll just keep talking on TV, talking on radio, and giving press conferences in Abuja here, and it ends there. But again, I keep calling on the roles of the state. The people are in the state, the land is in the state, the farming practices, everything is done in the state. So the state governments need to wake up. It's not everything that you keep crying and
to the
running
federal
to the
government.
federal government.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with you.
we should have a proper response. Instead of waiting for when this happens, we'll go and start distributing mattresses and small
relief materials,
materials.
and all of that.
It can be prevented.
Absolutely, it can be prevented, especially in various states. You have commissioners for environment and climate change and all of that, but still they also have to run to the federal government to get some of the problems solved. But again, this recurrent flooding in Nigeria, in 2022 we had it, and this year it was also predicted that it isn't going to get worse, though we are not seeing that prediction coming true yet, though it is happening. Will you attribute this to a rise in an intensity, or what do I call it now, an increase in rainfall?
Of course, it's global warming, which has increased the climate variability in the country. You know, it is not just in Nigeria, it's across the world. You know, 2 weeks ago, New York got flooded, of all places. Nobody would expect that. And in so many countries, you know, Spain, with even serious impact, more than what we have, you know, here. You know, so this is a global issue. It's affecting us. We are very vulnerable as a country. Why are we very vulnerable? Our ability to adapt is very, very small. We are very vulnerable because we are owing a lot, owing the IMF and the World Bank. You know, so a highly indebted country is very, very vulnerable. We are yet to recover, you know, from the 2012 flood and even the 2022 flooding, you know, that ravaged the country. Yeah, so building resilience is the way we should go as a people. We need to build resilience to adapt to the changing climate. It's not going to stop. It is a global issue. Yeah, and we also have to contribute our quota to solving the problem, even though we are not responsible for this problem, but it affects us more. So we too must deliberately be part of the solution.
Absolutely. That brings me to draw a comparison with country like Holland, Netherlands. There is almost 70% water, but now they are able to control all of this thing without really having to experience the impact of this flooding every year, just like the rest of the world do. What measure do you think, or what do you think we can actually learn from countries like that that have been able to manage their water body surrounding their country?
So our water bodies, fresh water bodies, that is the good thing about us, and that is the major, the luck or the blessing that God has given us.
Absolutely.
So all we need to do is to construct some dams, right, on these floodplains. The major cause of flooding in our country, apart from climate change, it is the release of water from Lagdo Dam. So what do we need to do? We have to have our own dam. that will harvest some of those water that is released. That dam will be very useful, not just for the sake of having a dam, but for agriculture. With climate change, weather patterns are changing. Our farmers can no longer be dependent on rainfall agriculture.
Absolutely.
So we need to go the way of irrigation. And such a dam is employment for the country. So irrigation farming, massive irrigation, is also fishery, is also even hydro for generating electricity. So and I know there have been talks about this, but again, I would say the lack of political will is what the problem
What about
is.
capacity building?
So yes, capacity building is another angle. I mean, and I think that is a discussion for a whole program, because we need to build the capacity of the various government agencies
and even departments and ministries,
of course, that are responsible for some of these things. You know, so that they can see deeper than just traveling around the world for conferences.
All right. I must thank you, David Market Terungwa, founder and executive director, Global Initiative for Food Security and Ecosystem Preservation, Gifsep. Most thank you for your time on Business Daily.
Thank you for
interesting
having me.
Contribution there. With that is a wrap on the show today. We'll be back on Monday. I am Yusuf Akubu.